In response to the devastation caused by Typhoon Odette, Malacanang thanked countries and organizations for their support to areas affected by the onslaught of the super typhoon. And one of the countries is Israel, whose assistance to those who were affected by Typhoon Odette continues until today. And earlier, I was able to talk to His Excellency Ilan Fluss, the ambassador of the State of Israel. Let's take a look. Several countries have extended their sympathy and their support for communities affected by Super Typhoon Rai, or Odette, as locally known here in the Philippines, through financial and humanitarian assistance. And Israel has recently joined in the relief efforts, sending solar-powered energy, rice, food items, hygiene kits. So today, first of all, we would like to thank the Israeli Embassy in the Philippines for helping the Filipinos in this time of need. It's a well-known fact also that Israel is always at the forefront of aid and humanitarian relief efforts during disasters and others like that. So disasters like this affect the most vulnerable. Could you please tell us or share with us Israel's recent relief response to the victims of Typhoon Rai or Typhoon Odette? Share with us your experience as you visited the provinces of or the province of Cebu and Bohol.
Thank you very much. I have to say that even when we heard that the typhoon is super typhoon Odette is coming, we already requested from Jerusalem some funding and the authority to implement humanitarian assistance because it was expected. I mean, we expected a super typhoon, so we prepared ourselves, and for that reason, we're able to deliver some of the items already last week on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Did a very quick process. Basically, we delivered assistance to Bohol and Cebu last week on Wednesday, which included the rice, ready food items, mm-hmm. hygiene kits, solar panels to generate electricity, a water purifying system, which can be operated manually, so you don't need the electricity. And we also actually had some more items already prepared, but for logistics, mm-hmm. it was difficult to already to supply them, and for that reason, actually on Friday, we had a ceremony in Villamore Air Base together with the Secretary Martin Andanao and some of the representatives of the Air Force, where we gave over there some of the similar items. I would say the third package. When I visited the Cebu, I met Mayor of Talisay, I met the Governor of Cebu, mm-hmm. and I met different people. I went to actually I went to deliver. Mm-hmm. Our humanitarian assistance package, but I also wanted to see how authorities and how people are dealing with the crisis. And I have to say our sympathies, and really I feel very sorry for the people who towards the happiest part of the year before Christmas and the New Year, they were really, we were struck by the typhoon, and I don't think they celebrated Christmas so happily. And it was important for me to interact and to go out and to show personally our sympathies and that we really care for the people. I saw government is functioning and busy working on repairing the damage, and there was a lot of damage both to infrastructure and to different services. So I saw the mayor, I saw the governor, other officials who are really dealing with the situation, analyzing, understanding where the problems, and giving different instructions to get the teams or the different agencies or bodies to respond, dealing with the prices of petrol that suddenly went up, encouraging the business community, which was already giving people places to charge the phones and giving them some connectivity. So you saw a lot of comradeship, a lot of support to each other within the community. Mm-hmm. And I saw people that are trying to to find solutions to bring some to create some to bring some local solutions, and obviously at the same time looking on rebuilding again for the longer run and to get the systems back on track. But we saw the same thing in Bohol, where we met the governor and again different officials. And I see there was, and the moment we were able to establish communication, the communication lines were difficult, but were effective. I think I addressed most of your questions. Maybe just one more thing to say. We are also joining on a longer term. We are joining. We would like to get more involved in the health sector, because we know that hospitals and healthcare centers have been damaged. And we're going to join Makati Medical Foundation. We're also open to working with other partners on this process of rehabilitation and building again medical centers. It's also an opportunity when you start rebuilding. It's an opportunity to build from new and to upgrade the systems. And it's also an opportunity to do some capacity building and to sort of to renew and to do it better than even it was before.
So what priorities did you see, Ambassador, which needed really urgent attention as you and your embassies, diplomats and staff visited the affected provinces? For example, displaced persons, access to first aid. Were there any noticeable aspects of the response mechanism which needed to be reinforced with the help of the LGUs and other humanitarian partners?
I think the first stage was really getting access to food, to water, to communication, and really clearing the roads and having physical access to the different places. Now I believe that this stage is now working on, well, it started from the beginning, but now less the issue of food. It is more of restoring the services, electricity, which will then they'll have also running water. So electricity is very important, and shelter, obviously, for people who lost their homes. And that's already for the longer run. And I think also on the social aspect, and people have, I mean, it's a traumatic event. So I think also on the social issue, it will be important to look at rebuilding communities, resilience of communities, post-trauma, so more of the social development aspects. I think this is another issue which we have to look at. And finally, renewing establishments or institutions that have been ruined, such as I said before, hospitals, schools, and so on. I think this is also very important to look at. I know the humanitarian community is looking at it now, including of course, the government is leading those efforts, and it's very clear the president is all around the place, which is very important, and he gives a very, very strong message of support to the people. So the government is really responding extremely well, and we as embassies and as foreigners here, we're trying basically to support the government with its efforts.
In emergency relief operations like this, do you have a timeline? Because we really, of course, we can predict if there is a typhoon coming, but is there a strict timeline which is followed by aid and relief organizations like yours in their response?
Well, the most important time is the immediate response, but especially when you have missing people, collapsed buildings, and I think at this case, I think the immediate response was important more of really because there are still some missing people. So I think there was a quick response. I think the government had also done very good preparations for the typhoon, including evacuating people to shelters, which I think saved a lot of life. About the next stage, which is more of now rebuilding and reviving the services, obviously here it is a question of doing this as soon as possible, but it really depends on each place, on the damage and what kind of work has to be done in order to revive those services. So, I think the immediate response was very good, and I think also now basically still the systems, government, aid agencies are doing the best. My impression is that things are under control. It's not not like Typhoon Yolanda in 2013 or cases of big humanitarian disasters. I think here it is a humanitarian disaster, but I think it is well under control. But a lot of people still in need.
Yeah, you answered my question because I was about to ask how was the coordination with the local NGOs, LGUs, Red Cross, and all that. So it's very good. That's very good to hear. How does the COVID situation exacerbate efforts to restore your timelines in these affected areas? Is it affected? Your timeline.
When I met both the sort of governor of Cebu and mayor of Talisay, and it was still on Wednesday last week, and basically the most important thing for them was really it's time of crisis. We have to deal with this crisis with the super typhoon Odette to make sure people have food, have water, have energy, and this was number one priority. And other issues should not distract from the efforts. So I think this was very important for the immediate. I was asking about, for example, the storage of the vaccines.
Yes.
And I understand that from what I heard, there was no damage, at least to the best of the understanding there was no damage to vaccine. They didn't lose vaccines because of the storm, which was very good to hear.
Yes.
Obviously, it is. So I think the simple answer is you have to prioritize. Number one, deal with immediate crisis. Number two, take precautions in order to avoid contamination and getting more people with the COVID. So it's a combination of the two. But the priority was to help people that have been affected by the typhoon.
Okay, sir. So to other things now, other topics. I understand this is your second tour of duty here in the Philippines.
Yeah. Maybe if I may, just to say that
please.
Israeli NGOs are also now active here in the Philippines, all the local partners in working with different communities, and the Israeli civil society and in the Israeli media, was a lot of coverage on the typhoon, and people are really not only worried but are interested to help and support the efforts here. Yes. So I believe that we're going to see some Israeli NGOs taking part here in the longer term rehabilitation efforts, and they will be coordinating with us with the embassy, and we think this is very important. So it is not only for the Israeli government but also have the Israeli civil society join those efforts.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Coming back to your question about
yes, this is your second tour of duty here in the Philippines, Mr. Ambassador. Yes. How do you find it? And do you find it busier, more challenging during this time of the pandemic? Typhoon relief. Tell us more about your recent observations.
It is, challenging is a very good description. It is. It's a new reality of COVID. I arrived here beginning of October, still locked down. But I'm lucky, I think, that I'm experiencing the opening up since the big lockdowns, because the economy is slowly opening up and the shopping malls are open. So I am experiencing basically a better time than last year. But still, it's not the same Philippines, but I think it's not the same world. The world has changed. COVID-19 change the world, and we have to live within this new reality. But on the other hand, I have to say that I'm really, really happy to be back here. It is really exciting. The country has developed a lot since I left. Same people, I mean, the Filipinos are great people. People that are friendly, are warm, are open. And for us as diplomats, as foreigners, this is really a very big advantage coming to the Philippines, because so for me, it's like coming back to my second home. Although many years have passed, I was here between 95 to 1998.
Oh, 1995 to 98.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been a few
That's
years
been a
ago.
long time. Yes.
2 years ago, I was then the deputy ambassador here, but I had a very interesting time. And coming back here, it's immediately sort of takes me back culturally, and takes me back to those years before. Some of the institutions, obviously in the companies, are still here. I met a few friends still from those days. So it's really great to be here, and I'm looking forward. I've been here for almost 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of plans, a lot of ideas, and I have to find ways
Yes.
to implement them.
Yes, I would like to ask about the projects that the Israeli embassy is about to take under your helm, sir.
So I would say maybe I go back and just reflect that our relations in the last few years
Yes.
really moved forward, I think, dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
We had a visit of President Duterte in Israel 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago.
Yes.
And since the visit, we have seen relations really move forward, which as a result, the embassy of Israel here in the Philippines is bigger. We have now a representative of the Ministry of Economy,
Mm-hmm.
realizing that we can do much more in private sector engagement, and getting more Israeli companies involved in the development process in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have a new representation office here of the Israeli Ministry of Defense, because of collaboration and cooperation in this sector. Israel is also a country which suffers from terrorism, and we have a lot of experience in dealing with terrorism and issues of national security, and we're happy to share and to contribute to fighting against terrorism here in the Philippines, and helping promoting peace and security in the country. And for me, taking this to the next stage, I believe my vision is to see collaboration in the area of innovation and technologies.
There.
So
Yes.
I'm talking about establishing, as I would say, bridges of innovation
Uh-huh.
between the two countries, between Israel and the Philippines. Israel is a global hub of innovation. You've seen Israel, all the multinational companies are invested in Israel. They have either research and development centers, or scouting centers, or incubators. They have all kinds of representation in Israel, not only for selling in Israel, because Israel is not a big market. We're only less than 10 million people, but it is a source of innovation and technologies. So all the companies are there. Now, the Philippines is a country with a very interesting economy. It is also a hub to the region, to the ASEAN region. A lot of advantages in entering the Philippine economy. So what I would like to do is establish bridges of innovation where Israeli innovators can work together with their Philippine partners in developing technologies and innovation which would be relevant to the challenges here in the Philippines, because what is relevant in Israel is not necessarily relevant in the Philippines due to the different climate, culture, regulation, challenges. So solutions have to be adapted and developed locally. So, but the principles of doing innovation, of promoting innovation, I think it's something that Israel can share, and also getting people working together, thinking together and thinking differently and very openly and innovative in an innovative way, we can really, I think, introduce new approaches that will help different sectors in the Philippines, if it is on the agricultural sector, if it is on water, environment, climate change, medical, sort of there are a lot of areas of interest which I think Israel can get more involved. And this is really the top of my agenda. It is connected to, as I said, I want Israel to be more involved in the development process in the Philippines. So when I talk about development process, it's not only assistance during humanitarian crisis like we did now with the debt, which I think is very important. It's part of it. But it is to work on long-term projects which will create more development and will boost the economy and the services to the society. I think agriculture is very important, public health, energy sector, water sector. So there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of potential, and it is the responsibility of myself as ambassador, basically to create those bridges or those links between Israel and the Philippines. If it is by government giving some kind of an umbrella and some assistance through the Israel Development Agency, Mashab, and if it is getting private sector working together. And then you have the other components of academia, researchers, startupists, and so on.
Mm-hmm. How can we adapt to the effects of climate change, since you talked about it as well?
Well, if I just bring the example of Israel, which is an example of a country which is, again, we have different challenges, but as an example of a country which was established in 1948 with big challenges of wars and the countries around us that are not accepting the presence of a state of Israel, but shortage of water, no natural resources, no energy, no gas, no oil, and very small territorial area. And what we did is basically with the human resource, people, we built knowledge, and out of those knowledge, we created solutions. If it is in the agricultural sector, how can you produce more with less? How can you have more products, more outputs with less inputs, meaning less water, less land? So basically, much more productivity. If it is water management, if it is on the energy sector, to have an energy sector which is cleaner and more efficient. So the solution is by working on knowledge, on innovation, on solutions, and then obviously using those solutions in the field. And one of the secrets, I believe, is that you create an ecosystem. When I say an ecosystem, I mean everybody is working together. If it is government from one side, if it is the private sector, if it is the end user, so let's say the farmers or the consumer at the end, if it is the universities, and even the military. A lot of knowledge comes out of the Israeli Defense Forces because they have to work on modern technologies, and everybody gets together. And when we develop solutions, they're not just coming out of the academia, which is not always connected to what is happening on the ground. The academia is very much connected to the farmers, to the end users, a lot of investments in research and development. So when you work holistically and understand the challenges, and then what will be the solutions for those challenges, which are pragmatic solutions, which can be after that introduced on the ground, that are not too expensive, that are very relevant to the challenges. So it's kind of an ecosystem where all players are working together. And I have to say that what contributed was that Israel is a country which, as I said, with lack of resources and not enough funding, which is a reality in most developing countries. So we always try to find the solution which is not expensive. It's not the top-notch solution which is the most expensive, lucrative, and looks best. It is something which is very relevant to systems that can be introduced on the ground, which are not costly, which are affordable to the farmer or to the end user. So I believe this kind of approach is something which is very relevant for many developing countries. I think here in the Philippines, it is certainly very relevant. And what I would like to do is really introduce the process and the approach to the Philippines and work together in getting our ecosystem, basically working together with the Philippine relevant partners in identifying solutions, such as as I said, productivity of the agricultural sector, if it is on dairy farming. I saw a very interesting Israel-Philippine company in Cebu working on water solutions. And it was very interesting to see that they brought in a way, the Israeli approach, but working in a Philippine setting. So it's an Israel-Philippine partnership. Philippine setting, Philippine partners, Israeli partners, bringing the Israeli way of thinking, the Israeli knowledge, and what we have accumulated in Israel, but then introducing it to a local structure to the Philippine needs, and it was really amazing to see how well it is working.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, Your Excellency, thank you for always answering the call for humanitarian aid and assistance, even in far-flung islands of our country. And Filipinos will always welcome Israel's humanitarian awareness and your high standard of technology and innovation. We look forward to building these bridges of innovation with you as we face more challenges and discover more opportunities. Thank you for your time, Ambassador. But first, Ambassador, we would like to ask for your final message, or maybe a New Year's message to everyone watching you right now.
So I wanted to say for the new year, I mean, the Israeli embassy has sent support to Cebu, to Bohol, to Shiragao, and this is a message that the Israeli people are close and feel very close and have warm feelings towards the Philippine government and the Philippine people. We are friends, we are allies historically, and I would like to wish for the Philippine people to overcome the current challenges, and I wish all of us I would say better new year, sort of a new year which will come to us and hopefully will be better with more progress, more development, more prosperity, better services to our people, and I would say closer partnerships and cooperation between Israel and the Philippines.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Mr. Ambassador. We look forward to having you again. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.